All right, Jules, just give us a heads up, man. We can't keep Jaime too long here.
All right. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3, 4. Go. Go. Oh, you want music? Okay.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to play it. Are we doing music? I can do it without if you'd rather just mix it in cold after. We've been spending some quality time with the LG G6 and the Huawei P10. Have our opinions changed since MWC? Google Pixel 2 rumors are swirling around Android O's newest features. And let's talk about Nokia mounting a comeback. All these stories plus some extra news, so make sure you're charged and ready for episode 243 of the Pocketnow Weekly. This weekly podcast is where we dissect and discuss those gadgets that make our lives mobile. Smartphones, tablets, and wearables. It's all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid, and you weren't concerned in the slightest with what desserts started with the letter O. Oreo is still king of the hill. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, senior editor at Pocketnow.com, blasting this signal from sunny Southern California, joined this week by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jaime Rivera. How's it going out there, buddy boy?
Wow, finally I get in the podcast. Thank you. What did I do?
It's been a little while.
What did I do? I feel so fortunate.
And of course, as always, plucky podcast producer Mr. Jules Wong is going to help us keep this sinking ship afloat. How's it going out there, man?
I'm still struggling to find something that starts with a Q because that's going to be coming up in a couple of years, right?
Right? They're going to have to go with like some kind of like, is it Quince? Is it Quince? Isn't that like a piece of fruit? And maybe that'll be the name of the Q update for Android?
I'll look that up and see if that's doable and then pass that on to Hiroshi Lockheimer.
Yeah, you just let him know what my suggestion is. He'll get right on that, I'm sure.
Indeed.
Now, before we jump into tech tomfoolery, we do want to take a moment to thank this week's sponsor, Mara.ai. Returning this week to sponsor the Pocketnow Weekly, we're stoked to have them on board. And going down the spiel, technology has changed the way we run. Thanks to smartphones now, even casual runners can map their routes, create pump-up playlists, and track their progress. However, taking advantage of all these technologies has always meant stopping to look at your phone, and you know how much that drives me crazy, which means losing momentum and losing motion. That's about to change because now there's Mara, a hands-free running assistant that uses voice recognition and the microphone in your earbuds to help you optimize your runs. It's another step in artificial intelligence and apps and services, not requiring us to always stare at our glowing rectangles. You can tell her what kind of run you'd like to do, ask questions about your speed, pace, or location, and have her play albums and playlists from your music library. Mara can also tell you how you're doing in comparison to your past runs or warn you about changes in the weather, like if it's about to rain. She'll even track your progress by noting all of your hotspots and rough legs each time you run. You can connect Mara to Amazon Alexa-enabled devices. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more news soon about, say, the Huawei Mate 9 getting that kind of ability, and ask her about lifetime statistics and records you've set while you get ready for your next run. Visit Mara.ai to download your free virtual running assistant today, and we thank them for supporting the Pocketnow Weekly.
Pew pew.
Well, I have been playing with it. I haven't been out running yet. I've still been doing mostly stationary cycle stuff. But Mara.ai, in playing with it, it seems like a pretty cool, like, again, just sort of that global layer where each of those individual little services are on your phone. Mara acts as like an umbrella that kind of ties all that stuff together. So I think it's an interesting solution and one that we'll probably be seeing other companies experimenting with, how to keep you more focused on the activity and less like babysitting all of the individual little things that we have that are supposed to help improve.
You've caught my attention.
Tracking.
You've got my attention.
Well, I'd actually really like to get your thoughts. I mean, I know they're a sponsor, and so, you know, whether or not we're going to be covering like a full review or anything like that, but I really would be curious to see your thoughts on Mara, just because I think it's kind of cool. But right now, that's not really the kind of workout that I'm doing a lot of, because like I said, I'm doing more stationary bike and free weights. So I know you've been getting back into your running routine too. So I think it'd be kind of interesting to see what you think of it.
I will definitely give it a try, mainly because we need to get rid of all that MWC pizza. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Who knew Spaniards were so good at pizza? Especially, you know,
you would think it would be the Italians. You would have to cross over the Mediterranean just a little bit for that.
I don't. We had a lot of food, man.
We had a lot of food.
Beef. I hear.
Oh,
Is that
We
Well,
made a couple
of
steakhouse
course.
runs, yeah.
A couple. Are you kidding me, Juan? Like we always went to steakhouses because for those of you that don't know, beef in Romania is so difficult to get.
And
And
this
when
is
you
our
get it,
editor-in-chief, Antonio.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
yeah, and when you do get it, it's terrible. So every time Tony is outside of Romania, he makes it a challenge to visit every single steakhouse he can.
This was my first experience in really tracking just how committed to that goal he was.
Oh yeah.
So for me, even just like some of the little lunch spots though, like you run up to like a little Spanish kiosk and you get a little bocadillo and it's supposed to be this tasty little treat. And me being the fat ass American, I'd walk up to one of these things. Can I get like 5 of these tiny little sandwiches? And I would just keep shoving them in my face. It was so
It's very nutritious, I would say. You got to keep that MWC foot shuffling in the way. And it's been 2 weeks, so
Look at
to
my
be able to
cheeks,
talk
man.
about- oh, jeez.
I know.
They're
Those
so
cheeks.
nutritious, man. I mean, oh.
I'm a little puffy.
And by the way, this is day 4 of me dieting, because I am just so overweight that I can't start running yet. If I start running, I could get injured. So I need to drop at least 10 pounds before I start.
Yeah, I mean, like the recovery from these types of trips is taking longer and longer than it used to. I used to bounce back a lot faster.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well,
you want some
speaking
business?
of bouncing
you want
back.
some bouncing back into the agenda, because I think that we would like to hear from all of you out there who would like to insert their thoughts into the podcast. We're still on this broadcasting hiatus as of now, but we can still use your thoughts in this production. So head on over to your email and type in podcast@pocketnow.com, as well as some thoughts, some questions, whatever you have, especially when we're getting deep into the review season for the LG G6, for the HTC U Ultra, and also for what we're about to talk about right now, the Huawei P10.
Yeah, so we won't, unfortunately we won't be able to keep Jaime for the entire show, but we definitely wanted to have you on for this part of the conversation, especially where we're going to do a little gadget in hand segment. We're deep into coverage on the G6 and the P10, and you have the new LG Android Wear 2.0 watch. I'm still rocking the Huawei Watch 2. Just arrived. We've got fresh take on that hardware, and then also just what your thoughts have been. Oh, don't worry, Jules. We have a G6 for you. Unfortunately, because my daughter, we just got her diagnosed with pink eye. I haven't made it out to go and ship you your G6. You actually will be getting a G6.
So that
next
means
week.
I'll have to be playing with it during vacation and writing up during vacation.
I think that's the best way though, because it's like you're not really going through all of like the benchmarking and review stuff. It's just, hey, this is the phone I'm going to use as a daily driver, the way I would normally use it. I think you come back with a much more on point examination of what you
Let's
think
hope
about
it works on Sprint.
And of course, it does not.
It does not work on Sprint.
I got a Project
sorry,
5
but
sim, so we'll be fine.
unfortunately,
We'll be fine.
I mean, I have a lot of love for Lil Yellow there, but we got to get you on something GSM for these unlocked phones, buddy.
Project 5. I think I won't get voice, but data works.
It's time. I think it's time.
I think it's time, especially
about
for the
time.
G6. I think it's time.
All right, you want to start off with the G6? I mean,
let's
I
jump
led
in there
off with the
because
P10,
especially
but-
because I know for listeners of the podcast, they're probably already pretty well comfortable with my thoughts on the Huawei P10. I've been talking about that phone a lot, but you've been spending more time, Jaime, with the G6. We're about to sort of switch places. I think next week I'm going to be covering some more of the comparison stuff on the G6. You're going to be spending a little more time with the P10. So you just used the G6 in your travels. You spent a little time right outside the Vatican. And I think that was probably a great place to break in a dual camera system that focuses on wide-angle photography.
So just to give you an idea, in my bag, I had a Google Pixel because I needed Fi. I had an iPhone. I don't know why I was carrying an iPhone 7, but I was carrying one. I was carrying the G6, and I was carrying the V20 on the DJI Osmo for video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I was also carrying my A6300 with a 20 millimeter f2.8. I think I took at least 6 or 7 photos with the Sony, right up to the point where I was like, I'm wasting my time. Um, okay, so we for all of you that have that have seen my reviews or anything, I really try to not be as fanboyistic as possible. We try to be as objective as we are, and we try to criticize things where they're due. The thing about this phone is it's just very, very useful. There were scenes in the Vatican because we went to the Vatican Museum. And when you're in the Vatican Museum, the biggest problem is you are standing there with another, 300 people in that same room. So you can't really just move back. You can't just stand back and try to take another angle. No, you're standing there, especially when you're in the Sistine Chapel. You can't move.
Right.
And so it is so refreshing to have the wide angle lens. I've been a fan of the wide angle since the G5, but the problem with in the time of the G5 and in the time of the V20 is that the wide angle wasn't the same sensor.
Right.
The 135 degrees of field of view provided barrel distortion. And the V20 is like, if they sat down, they listened to people, and they were like, okay, the first thing they got rid of is the barrel distortion to a certain degree. It's now 120 degrees. You still get a little distortion, and you explained to me, Juan, you're the camera expert. You explained to me that there's just no way to do a wide angle and not have it, which is great.
Yeah.
It's great. But like the other thing was the fact that, like, dude, I took some photos. So in the Sistine Chapel, you can't take any photos. It's prohibited. And all I did was hold my phone like this. And because you can launch the
sneaky bastard.
You can launch the camera with a double tap on the button. And then I just placed it here and I just started taking photos. And I took a photo of the roof. I took wide angles, I took regular angles. I don't know about you guys, man. I'm actually posting a video later tonight on my experience during the first week, and I'm sold. So we have the monochrome option with the Huawei's. Mm-hmm. We have the telephoto option with the iPhone, and I don't think I've ever found more use for a camera than when it's wide. There are certain I don't want to say, oh, these are beautiful shots, but I'm sorry, I really love the action of certain photos where you could just take a whole shot of the dome at the top of the sculpture, mainly because you're using the wide angle lens.
Yeah.
I love that.
And there's something really bold about capturing an almost one-click near panorama field of view. I mean, it's something I think LG has really nailed on this phone.
Yeah. What you're playing right now, Jules, is actually a video that I couldn't catch with the G6, so I would move away from that one. But just move down a little. There are certain shots, like for example, that one with the dome.
That's a pretty good one.
You can't capture that. And by the way, this is not me cropping into the square of Instagram to take advantage and remove the barrel distortion. This is the shot as it came out on the G6. And then all I did was boost a little saturation because the lighting was very dim in these areas. Boosted a little saturation, boosted a little warmth, and then that's it. That's the shot.
A little saturation. That looks pretty rich right there. So
the G6 kind of saturates photos. I think it's been doing it since the G5, where skies kind of look a little too saturated in the post-processing. But I don't know about you. I like the photos as they are.
I think this has definitely been one of the big changes from LG. With the G4 and the V10, I think they had a really good take on a more natural or slightly undersaturated look, because they were fighting a Samsung that was just juicing color all over the place.
Yeah.
But from your own experiences, I think when you're sharing those photos, I think a lot of people are looking at what's going to be really eye-catching, what's going to be really satisfying. And so now the split seems to be, if you shoot in auto mode, LG is doing a much better job of kind of warming and juicing up those colors without straying into like crazy territory. And then if you switch over into pro mode, it'll back off some of that, and it gives you a little bit more room because it assumes in pro mode that you're probably more likely to be doing some more editing on your end.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like auto mode is doing really well in our prototypes during the day. It is not during the night. I don't know about your unit, but there are some night shots of the Vatican from the outside that I just had to go directly into manual reduce the shutter speed, just to be able to capture everything without grain. And I also noticed that in video. Again, these are prototypes. We can't judge them. We can't give you a final opinion until the final units are in. But, you know, so far, everything else, again, that's one thing. That's the camera. The second thing is the handling of the phone. Phablets don't have to be phablets. And I think that LG proved that in the time of the G2. And one of the main reasons why in the initial video I make reference to the G2 is because that was the first time, if you remember, it was the exact same screen dimension of the Galaxy Note, the original Galaxy Note, 5.1 inches, but in a far smaller chassis. And so, you know, just to be able to have 5.7 inches on this display, and for it to be, like, it's significantly smaller than an iPhone 7 Plus. Like, significantly smaller. The phone actually looks bigger on video than it really is.
Yeah, it's a bigger, so 5.7-inch diameter. And I think David Ruddick of Android Police put it out there that on a 16 by 9, that would equate to like a 13.9 square inch surface area. In this case, it's 13 inches, and it's 2880 by 1440. So,
and I think
it's that much more dense.
I think it's genius because if you notice, I'm holding the phone.
Yeah,
fully.
Look at that.
I'm holding the phone fully from one edge to the other, and I'm able to touch absolutely everything, at least on the bottom.
You're able to touch your thumb to your ring finger.
Yeah, I'm so close. I can't get there.
Yeah. Whereas in the other phone that we're going to talk about a little later, oh my God, you can't. You can't. But continuing on with the G6, I think that so we were in the presentation with Juan in the pre-brief, and they made it a big point over how important it is for, again, a phablet doesn't have to be a phablet. You can get a gigantic display without having to fumble with the experience of using the phone, which has been my experience with the iPhone 7 Plus. It's the first time I've ever gone Plus with an iPhone, and I dropped the first one and I smashed it on the floor just because of how slippery and how bad it is to hold. You know, Samsung tried to fix this with the Edge displays on their S7 Edge lineup. The problem is there is no palm rejection, so it's really annoying to hold the phone and, for example, want to take a photo with the S7 Edge and not be touching the display at some point, and then the screen doesn't react. So the cool thing about the G6 is you've got these like really thick rims on the side. And then, in addition, the back is really grippy. It's almost flat. And again, you're able to just hold it all the way to the other end. The only problem and the only thing that I would change about this phone is just like, so I don't know about how you use it, Juan, but I have the home button, the multitasking. Since you can call on the notification tray with a button, I set it to that. But I wish that they were set another button for menu.
Yeah, I do miss that. We were talking about that. I miss having that 4-button layout because of all of the phones, all of the apps that are now going to like upper corner hamburger menus.
You can't reach that.
One of the weak spots on this phone is trying to reach an upper left-hand corner. If you're holding the phone one-handed, it's just impossible to
exactly. And so Apple has that with reachability. You just double tap the home button, it brings down the user interface, and you're able to touch it with one hand. But in the case
Samsung
of
has that where it does a proper full screen shrink, so it's not even that it just pulls it down.
Exactly.
LG uses that on the V20. I'm surprised that it's not here on the G6.
Yeah.
You know what would be cool? So LG also does the customizable navigation bar where you can drag down the notifications shade and do,
exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
I was hoping maybe that they would do like a mapped touch thing where, you know, if you press a button down there, it would just, you know, automatically, you know, do touch actions on the top corners to be able to automatically do to, you know, get the menu buttons up there. So I don't know, you still might have, you still have to go up there in order to get the menu, but even then, like, it's good, your option might be somewhere down below. You wouldn't have to work as much.
It would be nice. I'm looking through now, and there aren't any settings because because like what you're saying, Jules. Like I think that was, I don't know if it's on the V20. I think it was on the V10, where you could also do, like, in some apps you could pull from the corner of the display and it would shrink. Certain apps for you, and it doesn't seem like there's any options for this on the G6.
I haven't found any options either. And again, Juan, everything else about the phone. And again, there's going to be a video later today with my experience over a week, which has mainly been pleasant. I've been trying to like an LG phone forever, mainly because again, I was a big fanboy of the G2. And then I was I was really disappointed at the G3 because Quad HD on that display was terrible. The G4 was probably like the level off where the company matured the G3 design. And I really like the G4 except for battery life and certain things. And then they come up with the G5 and then just completely throw everything down the drain with the G5. And so
yeah, that was a bad experiment.
And so again, this is me saying, would I recommend the G6? Wow, so far for my experience with a prototype, I would. I don't know about you, Juan.
Yeah, so some of those concerns, I think really the last concern that I've got, and I have to spend a little bit more time with the camera, has been low light photography performance so far. And that's really difficult to judge when we're talking about pre-release software. We're pretty confident this is release hardware. We just don't have the final software version that's going to go out to consumers. And I think they need a little bit more polish there. The thing that I've been very, I tweeted a teaser about this, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and spoil the results of the real audio review for the G6 for people that are following.
Oh,
this
yes.
The headphone jack performance on the G6 has been very encouraging. I still have a couple more tests to run, but where the G5 was one of the worst phones that we reviewed of 2016, because we also in North America, we never got to play with the B&O DAC, the add-on friend DAC. It just
so
never
stuck with the bog standard 808 chip.
Yeah, just what was the 820? The
820, no, 820. Yeah.
But you know, it was like the bare minimum, because you know you can activate other quality settings, I guess, on Qualcomm 808 hardware, but I mean Qualcomm 820 hardware doing that too. So in running the tests, the DAC and the amp that are built into the G6 get us very close to HTC 10 territory. The amp is a little bit weaker, but we're talking about quality that is now handily competing with iPhones and HTCs. So your audio quality, your noise floor, your signal to noise ratio, your stereo crosstalk are all now radically improved over where we were on the G5. So it's not a V20, but this is now commiserate with it being a premium priced handset. This is much better headphone performance than anything that we've heard from LG outside of a V series phone.
And I don't know if you've noticed
ESS for that.
I don't know if you've noticed, Juan, but if you record voice, like for example, I do a lot of WhatsApp voice messaging just to avoid the need to type. And like the sound of my voice is crisp. Really crisp. And a lot of it has to do with the speaker. Like the speaker on this phone is not bad at all. Like LG, ever since the G3, I think we've been using 1-watt speakers. The only problem is it's just one speaker.
Right.
Just one. Very easy.
Yeah, again, it's those little subtle improvements help a lot. And so we don't have the same microphone array that we have on the V20, but I think they're using the same mics. So again, it's a higher quality audio capture, and it's a much higher quality audio output than anything that we've been used to on a G series in the past. Yeah.
Another thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed it, but even though it has really fast charging, that's great. It has wireless charging. Okay. The problem is that I've tested it in 3 wireless chargers, and it does not have fast wireless charging.
No, it doesn't.
It is slow.
You know, I think the thing on that is, I mean, so for example, you know, Samsung has been promoting their fast wireless charging. I think it requires a very specific, unique setup, which I can't believe that LG had the resources to redefine their own version of a wireless fast charging while implementing this into a product. So unfortunately, I think that'll have to be either for future V or a next generation G product if they can get behind that as a standard.
Yeah, the only thing the phone will tell you is if it's vertical, it'll charge faster, which I'm happy, because if that's faster, oh man. All right.
Well, you know, it's going to be a convenience feature, which is why wireless charging still, I don't think, has kind of taken off in favor of people who just plug their phone in at night. But it's one of those nice things. You kind of set it down. You don't have to think about it. It's going to get a trickle charge over time. But it's one of those things where we're all used to now, especially with like the next phone we're going to talk about with like Huawei's, where you plug your phone in and 15 minutes later, it's almost completely fully fully charged again, and you can just get on about your day. Wireless charging is kind of fighting, I think, that mentality of what's really more convenient, not having to plug in a cable or spending a lot less time waiting for your phone to top off. And I think the cabled solution is going to win out for most consumers.
Yeah, definitely.
Indeed.
So yeah, I've been very impressed. I mean, we're gonna have a few more videos out on the G6. Obviously, a real audio review. I am gonna be spending some time doing the real camera review.
Can't wait to see that.
I'm torn as to how deep we're gonna dive in until we get finished software, but I don't want to save this for as long as it took us with the V20.
Well, from my understanding,
we'll weigh pros and cons.
From my understanding, we're getting other units.
Yeah.
Where our units will be replaced, from my understanding.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, that happens timely, because we know there's also going to be that long delay in between international G6 shipping and North American G6 units. So hopefully it doesn't take us out of commission too long.
Like, for a prototype, dude, I'm very satisfied, very happy. Honestly.
And it's
very impressed.
Yeah, and it's March 10th, so Koreans are supposed to be getting their final units today, which is going to be interesting to watch out for the next month. Funny how to say that the next month before everyone else gets theirs.
Yeah,
they have LG Pay or something like that.
Yeah, they get that fancy payment system. Well, I think that'll also be sort of the interesting thing to talk about is watching that split of different regions, where we got wireless charging. A couple regions are going to get high quality DACs, and unfortunately, it looks like the G6 in Europe is just not going to get either of
It's
those.
just going to be a shell. There's no like guts inside. It's just
I find it to be such an irony. Like, at what point do you come out with a no holds bar V20 and then you tell consumers that you don't care about the things that you offered in the V20?
Right.
I don't get it.
It's still, I think, the critical issue facing LG. I mean, I'm sounding like a total broken record here. The critical issue facing LG is having that conversation with consumers and having a unified brand strategy. This is what an LG phone is. This is what an LG phone does. And I still think that we're going to be seeing them figure that out over this year, and hopefully by the end of the year we get a company that's executing on all of those parts, not just putting out a great phone, but also doing a much better job of advertising it and doing a better job of getting that phone into consumers' hands on the ground so they can see for themselves what these products have to offer.
I'm trying to remember a commercial for maybe the LG G Flex or something, but it was like it was from Holland, and it involved a guy cutting up stuff in the kitchen, and there was just a whole bunch of weird stuff with the hand, like there was a mustache on it, and then it was getting kisses from the phone. Like,
so you're telling me a weird LG ad? That's impossible.
Shocking! I can't believe that would ever happen.
I'm just thinking that maybe all of LG ads come from Europe, and that's why everything's so screwed up in Europe.
I'm telling you, man, it's so disappointing seeing the kind of content that they cut for LG in South Korea. Like, they're making mini documentaries. Their commercials are on point. It's kind of like, Jaime, have you seen the new iPad Pro commercials that Apple's putting out?
Yeah.
Super clean, to the point. We're going to focus on this one feature or this one aspect of the tablet, and it gives that one consumer demographic a reason to consider it. Do you need Microsoft Office on a tablet? You can run it from an iPad Pro and look at the Apple Pencil and how it's touch optimized. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So easy to understand why you might consider that product. And they have a variety of commercials so that they can target individual demographics. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of conversation. And if LG had done something like that for the V20, I think the conversation on the V20 would have been a completely different game.
And if you want to be funny, just bring off Christoph Waltz again, like in the Galaxy Note 7. I think that ad was brilliant. I am so sad that phone went through what happened, because for me that's one of the most brilliant ads, where he's like, Americans, you are so busy, you don't have enough with curricular, so you have extracurricular. And so it's like, and so here's the phone for you, a phone that can do more. Galaxy Note 7. I love that ad.
And see, I mean, like, look at how effective Samsung's comedy has been, because I also point to Lil Wayne pouring champagne on a
Yeah.
Galaxy S7 Edge to show water resistance. You're still showing a feature. You're still showing a benefit to that phone. Having Jason Statham in drag on a motorcycle doesn't tell me anything about an LG.
It
Having
tells
Joseph
you he's
Gordon-Levitt
crazy.
dancing in a subway stop doesn't tell me anything about what that phone
Well,
can do.
I think that's more all of those things. The fact that you're mentioning the stars and what they're doing in the ad and not the phone, which was featured and was, featured doing things, showing off the camera, showing off whatever, that all those distractions, I think, were
got in
just
the way of
overbearing.
telling the story.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, ultimately, yeah, there are things, but when you really go and watch the V20 commercials that we got here in North America, there is almost no showcasing features of the phone. I mean, almost none. It's people dancing and making music, and then it pans out at the end of the commercial to show someone holding the phone, and that's it.
Then, well, it does say, made with LG V20, but
that's
what
not
worth,
enough.
what worth has that got? All right, so
moving on.
hating on the LG V20, let's talk about half that. Let's talk about the Huawei P10. How about that? Can we do that?
Divide by two.
Yeah, VP. It's always
So Jaime, I mean, like in because I know you were really focusing on G6 for travel because you were going to be covering the initial videos on the G6, and I've been spending more time with the P10. Have you had a chance to fire up your P10?
I've set it up. I showed you the whole Wi-Fi restore.
Yeah.
Dude, like setting this phone up from an existing iPhone or an Android phone is just genius. You download an application on the other phone, it connects through Wi-Fi, and it just transfers everything in minutes. Like it just puts everything else to shame. I'm just waiting to hang up so that I can go outside because it's snowing. And ever since we were with Danny Widget, and he was showing me just the monochrome shots of this phone, and mainly what I've been focusing on using this phone is for its monochrome capabilities. I mean, you're always really hyped about Huawei and their photography. I told you I found the Mate 9 to be, again, we go back to user preference. You're a professional photographer, so for you it's like the most accurate camera is this, whereas for me it's the one that exemplifies the moment most. And I found the Mate 9 to be a little just too accurate, less on the saturation side. But then, after our conversations in Barcelona, I'm really curious to give this phone a try. The main reason why I was never carrying the Mate 9, I only carried it like twice. No, sorry, I carried it for a full week. The problem is because of certain regional, not restrictions, but certain regional issues, I have to carry the iPhone 7 Plus in Honduras. And I was in Honduras.
Right.
And, oh my God, 2 phablets? Like, really?
Yeah, it's a mess. That's what my problem was. I was doing Mate 9 and V20. Ugh.
Yeah, so for me to be able to carry a phone that's the size of an iPhone, the size of an iPhone 7, that actually fixes the camera hump, that gives me the option for monochrome photography. I don't know about you, but it handles Android better than anything I've seen.
Even with the skin on top, even with EMUI running on top of it, it's so clean.
I don't care what everybody wants to criticize about the Huawei skin. I hate it too visually, but man, this thing screams.
It's a
this
screamer.
thing screams like it does. It just acts. It never stops. It never stutters. It's
6,000 points on the Geekbench multi-call score.
It's 6,005 if it were up to me. it's that good. I've actually been enjoying. Again, I haven't really been able to spend much time with it, but I'm very impressed.
No, all the time you got to spend was with Manfred Bowman and talking about all that photography that you did in the room.
This is one of the things that I think has been a little disappointing in people that have been sort of armchair criticizing the P10. I'm becoming something of a Huawei fanboy, so take all this with a grain of salt. But a lot of people were saying it's not a big enough update, it's not a big enough change. And when you really weigh down all of the improvements from the P9, not comparing it to the Mate 9, they're separate phones, but when you weigh all the improvements from the P9, I think you end up with a pretty solid value proposition, because we're all waiting for Samsung to eat up the first batch of Qualcomm Snapdragon 835s. That's going to be the first phone that has the 835. Every other phone is rocking an 820 or an 821 right now. But you check out the stats on a Kirin 960, and you've got 835 power today. So with silly things, with running a skin and having way more stuff connected to it, having way more junk installed, something as simple as the boot up time, I can boot.
I saw your video.
My,
I saw your video. That was impressive.
It's
crazy.
Isn't the Kirin 960 the only one with the Cortex A72 right now cores?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
I'd be inclined to say yes, because even boot up speed, I can boot the P10 in half the time as it takes me to boot a Pixel XL. And the Pixel XL is no slouch.
Stock Android. It's stock Android.
It's ridiculous. I mean, how fast and how powerful this little phone is. And I mean, I was having those experiences with the Mate 9, and so we were all sort of holding off. Maybe the 821 was going to be better competition for it. It's in a completely different league. I mean, Pixels and OnePlus 3Ts are fallen way by the wayside if you're really looking at the horsepower that this little phone has to offer.
And I think we really need, people need to make up their minds. I mean, we're always criticizing phones for being too big. They're just too large. They're too uncomfortable. Why can't we get a flagship in a decent size? All right, Here you go. Here you go.
Oh, but no, it doesn't look different enough, or it looks like an iPhone. Or I wanted it to have like a unicorn magic fairy dust powers, and it doesn't.
Well, hold it back up again. Hold on, give me 1 second here. That looks like a really blue Pixel, like only better.
I love you've got dual SIM capabilities. I love the screen. If anything, one thing that I would change is I would ask Huawei, please, could we just can we customize what those gestures do on the
I really wish we could do that. Yeah.
I really wish we could do that, because like the ones that are in, like, press and hold to go home. I don't like that. I want to press it once, go home. If I want to go back, I'll press and hold or something like that. I don't know. Just let me choose. Let me choose what to do. This is one of those things where I love OnePlus. Like, I love that user interface where you can do whatever you please with those buttons. Thank you, OnePlus.
Let me ask you, so if this would make sense to you, I think you're absolutely right. Single tap should take you home, just like it does on any other phone. I think a long press should either pull up multitasking or deliver you to the Android Now search, whatever. And then the gesture should be the back. So when you swipe across the home button, that should be the back button. That to me seems to make a lot more sense to my thumb.
I've accidentally swiped left on Chrome tabs. I have a Chromebook, and you have to swipe. You can swipe left with 2 fingers to go back, and I've accidentally done that while scrolling. So that's. I'm not
Listen,
sure
Huawei. We already have an iPhone smartphone here. Let's just do things iPhone way. You double press, and you get multitasking. You can swipe and you go back. You press and you go home.
Well, that was what got Huawei into trouble before with EMUI, was making things a little too much like the iPhone.
And you press and hold and you get the Google Assistant. How about that? How about we do that? Thank you. Really
Cupertino China.
I really like
looking at size and stuff. I mean, against a Galaxy S7, it's just that little bit taller.
Yes.
But it's surprising, like, how much thinner this thing looks and feels.
Yes.
And that it doesn't have any camera bulge, which even the Galaxy S7 has this little bit of a lump from the camera sensor there. I'm exceedingly impressed with what Huawei has been able to cram into this form factor.
Like, my 2-phone combination has been all through the end of the year, it was the iPhone and the Pixel. Mm-hmm. Right now I'm moving into the G6 as my mostly go-to, and then since I'm able to use Project Fi on the P10, I'm actually throwing in the SIM. It's already in here, actually, and I think my combo so far is G6 P10.
Yeah, that's what I've been rocking for the last couple days too, and I've been really impressed with that handoff. And it's so much nicer for me, for coming from the Mate 9 and the V20 to be getting most of the power of those massive diesel truck phablets in little roadster. They're hot little coupe.
I wish we had the stereo speakers. That's the only thing this phone is missing.
That too.
That's the only thing this phone is missing.
It would have been nice to light that up. But, again, for some of the small compromises you need to make, I'm also a little frustrated with Huawei right now not disclosing what the IP rating for the P10 is. We have the P10 Plus.
I told you.
It
was
rain resistant, but...
Yeah, there you go.
It doesn't matter anyways because it won't be coming to the U.S., so...
But for it's going to Canada, though. It's going to North America. It's going to Canada, so we should at least be able to talk to our Canadian brethren.
Canadian friends, our UK friends who are definitely going to get this, but I'm just, I would like to have a piece of this myself because I've been using large phones for like the V20 right here is my daily driver, and it keeps slipping out of my hand, and I keep fearing for the fact that it's gonna shatter its screen again.
I apologize for our plague outbreak here because you will be getting a G6. No worries there. We're gonna hook you up with a smaller phone. But before we lose you, Jaime, I definitely wanted to spend just a quick minute talking your impressions on that LG watch that you're sporting, because we both got to spend a little time with the Huawei Watch 2. I thought this was already a chunky piece of kit to be wearing on your wrist, and it looks like the LG watch is going to be doing that even bigger, which makes me nervous and scared.
Look at this band. It's what? This was $15 on Amazon.
I need to get that
and it doesn't look. I was worried that that cover that's on top of the lunges on this Huawei would look bad, but it doesn't look bad at all. And the good thing about this band, I'm going to send you the links, Juan, and I think we could actually link them on the podcast. Because for the price tag, these bands are not, because they're not glossy, and because the watch is plasticky, it actually makes for a really good combination. It looks like if it was made for the watch.
That's cool.
It looks really good.
I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see on our webcam sitting here, but it's still one of the biggest criticisms I have of the band that comes with the Huawei Watch 2.
Yeah,
is that it's this plasticky cheap. It's not a sport band. It just feels like a cheap plastic Swatch watch band in the worst possible way. Like, I kind of love a plasticky Swatch watch if that's what I'm going for. This just feels like, I don't know.
Like you would sweat under it, and it would actually create an indent.
It's super gross. Like when you're actually wearing it and you get that wrist sweat going on, and it's just tacky and it's stuck on. So I have a couple other watch bands. I've got to swap it out. I was gonna wear it through the rest of the review period, but I'm gonna have to tap. I can't stand this watch band.
So in the case of the watch sport, I just unboxed it I don't know, 2 hours ago. By the way, so I just set up. Number one. I don't know if you've seen large watches, but there are large watches. There are really large watches. There's the Casio WSD F10.
Right, yeah.
And 3 blocks down, over there at the bus stop, across the corner, under the McDonald's, there is the watch sport.
Wow. That thing looks...
I'm exaggerating. So no.
So we're talking about Brooklyn instead of Astoria.
We're pretty much already in Brooklyn. So, okay, so no, I'm exaggerating. The watch is not as big as a Casio WSD F10 or F20. What it is thick. This thing is really thick. And so when you grab the Huawei and you notice that it has a SIM card, you wonder why this watch, which also has a SIM card, is so thick. It's just gigantic. It's ginormous thick. You can't replace the watch bands. But I don't know about you. I like the look. I like the watch.
No, it looks really bold. I guess the question
it looks bold.
I haven't looked up the specs on that thing yet. Do you at least even get a bigger battery? Is that part of the equation, or is it just that it's more armor plating?
I haven't really been able to dig in and compare both watches spec by spec, but for those people that are looking for a really different watch, it looks very modern. AKA this, the Apple Watch looks like nothing. It looks like an Apple Watch, and that's it. And so this watch sport, is pretty much, it looks unique. I guess one of the things that I'm sold so far is this crown to navigate Android Wear. Thank you, LG. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the extra really cool.
The extra button at the bottom. Thank you. I love it. I love it, and I love the watch phases. I love that these are more flexible than the Huawei. The only thing I like about the Huawei is they're a little more elegant. They're a little more skeuomorphic than LG.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of taste. Everybody's been telling me that the battery life on this thing is terrible. I'll let you know later.
Gotcha.
Well,
I haven't been super encouraged by the Huawei watch either. I have to disable everything to make it through the day.
So I haven't had problems with the watch. The watch
Do you
is
think
actually
it's with the Snapdragon Wear 2100 chipset? That's
it could
well,
be.
Well, I guess the question I would have is, did you throw a SIM card in yours? Because
No.
when I'm in automatic roaming on the Huawei watch, it doesn't matter if I'm connected to Bluetooth. It seems like it's pinging the LTE so frequently that it'll die before dinner time.
Yeah, no, and I disabled LTE. Like,
yeah, so I mean, it's those things like maybe the Wi-Fi. I need to play around with that more too.
So this one brought a SIM card, but I think it's not active. So I don't know about I don't know about you. So the only thing that I did notice, my God, this thing takes forever to charge. I love smartwatches for how fast they are to charge, but this thing is slow.
Not speedy.
No, like not speedy at all. But yeah, this is ginormous. It's you'll have to get used to it, and I guess that's my biggest concern with the approach to Android Wear smartwatches. One of the things that I like about the Apple Watch, believe it or not, it's the stupidest thing, but it's the fact that you pay $350. Well, in my case, it's the $400 variant, where you can swap bands on it and it becomes a sport watch. You can swap bands on it and it becomes an elegant watch. And this allows you to use the same watch for everything. And the battery life is epic. On Series 2, by the way, not on Series 1. Series 2 battery life is really good. The problem with Android Wear is that either-or mentality. Either it's a Moto 360 that's really beautiful, but then you're going to need a Polar M600 if you want the smartwatch. Either you grab the really elegant Huawei watch, or you get the really plasticky Huawei Watch 2, or you go for the very elegant Huawei Watch 2 Classic. And so that either-or mentality is really frustrating from the perspective of you're paying a lot of money for a watch you really want it to do everything.
Well, it's not just a mentality. It's, it's a realm of possibility, because Apple decided last minute, and this is according to, I think, a Bloomberg report, that they opted against cellular because they couldn't find a way for it to not drain battery, and they couldn't find there wasn't enough miniaturization that they could do to go along to put all that stuff together. So
and I get the point of cellular.
We're seeing the consequences right now of this, because Android Wear wants to be progressive, wants to be the way forward. It's maybe just stepping a little bit too ahead of its time.
I really like the approach to cellular, mainly because when you're running, you don't want to be carrying a phone. I just want the watch, and I want the watch to be able to do everything. And for people that are out there thinking about buying a Garmin Fenix that'll cost you $600+ in its most basic variant, then yes, I would totally consider a watch like this. Fine. The thing about the Garmin is that thing is gorgeous. This is half the price, but you can't replace the bands on this LG watch. And so you come into this territory where, why would you pay so much money for a sport watch that's not really a sport watch? It's not really designed to be a sport watch like a Garmin is. And you can get a Garmin for $150. You can pay $200 for a Garmin and buy a watch that's just a watch, a sport watch.
Do you think that might be one of the missteps of Android Wear 2.0, is that it does seem like Google really prioritized improvements to some of the fitness tracking to fight like Fitbit? I mean, that makes sense. But it feels like it's straddling
the
smartwatch communication world and the fitness tracking world. And I still don't feel like we've landed that really great Venn diagram overlap. Like, it's doing both things well, but not as well as what an individual nice watch would do and an individual fitness tracker would do.
It did. It's just, so the biggest problem is, so Google is trying, but the problem is the OEMs. For example, Google launched those watch bands that are easily replaceable. It's just a little button at the bottom and you swap one band and the other. That was the perfect way to approach fitness. You just simply need a watch that you snap off, snap on. That was the mentality. That was the way to go. The problem is when you have a watch sport that you can't replace the bands. You have this Huawei watch that has 21. No, wait a second. These are 20 millimeter watch bands, but then you go into the Moto 360 and that one is 22, and then you just start into this like fumbling of ecosystems where it's like, just make up your damn mind. You know, and I think that the best approach, honestly, is you either go really inexpensive, which is the case. Well, Fitbit is not inexpensive, but all they are is very good fitness trackers. That's what they are.
Right.
And it's the ecosystem, and it's the fact that they've decided to make it a closed ecosystem, and they've figured out ways to get into companies. Like, for example, I know of cases where companies give out Fitbits and they make challenges with their employees.
My wife's company does exactly that.
Right, right, and so they figured out a way to proliferate that ecosystem. In the case of Android Wear, I feel that the challenge will be for Google to launch some standard features, define them from a design standpoint. These are the watch bands. Why? Because you want that mentality. I want the watch to cost $300, but I want it to do everything. You know, I want it to do everything. That is the amazing flexibility of the Apple Watch. I can go for a swim today. It's good enough for swimming. I can go cycling with it. It's good enough for cycling. There are just so many things that the Apple Watch can do. I feel that Apple was the company that nailed the approach. Series 2, not Series 1. And so that's where Google needs to catch up, in my opinion. Again, but it really needs to ramp up OEMs and say, okay, launch your classic variants, launch a sport variant, but don't make it look this cheap, please. Don't make it look this
well,
cheap.
And especially coming from being such a Pebble devotee, I agree. I kind of feel like the notion of at-a-glance notifications, small bits of information, and brief interactions, I still feel like the Samsung also falls for this trap a little bit too, where the more you replicate phone features on a tiny screen, the more I wonder, why aren't I just interacting with my phone for the watch side of it? And then if you can't deliver a really compelling fitness experience at the same time, then what is it that we're really trying to accomplish here? So I've been enjoying my time with the Huawei Watch 2, but I've definitely got some criticisms on Google's strategy for the software that pins all this stuff together.
But it's not only a problem with Google strategy. It's a problem with all OEMs. They want to create this robust ecosystem to lock in developers and to lock in users. The problem is, for example, I use an Apple Watch most of the time, and I never run applications. Ever. It's pointless. Why? Okay, and here's the biggest problem.
I agree with that, definitely.
Why do I not launch applications on a smartwatch? Have you ever tried launching one? Have you ever noticed how long it takes for the app to launch? It takes
Even with Apple Series 2?
Even with Series 2, it takes you less time to pull the phone out of your pocket. And so,
and the second you pull up Apple's equivalent of an app drawer on a watch, it's just such a mess.
It's a mess. And so, but the problem is when your competition is Samsung with their Gear S3, where their app drawer is worse.
Right? Yeah. It's really fiddly.
It's worse. And then Google is trying to fix it. I like their approach. But again, the challenge is make applications quicker or just don't do them at all. Please, I mean, I'm not going to read my email on my watch. What I will do, and one thing that the Apple Watch does better than every watch, is things like walking directions. I'm in Manhattan, I'm late. I'm like, I need walking directions to Penn Station. And I just, but then we go back to, the design over function. It takes too long for the watch to be able to react to that. And you just completely, you get pissed off, and then you just pull out your phone and you do it. And so I feel that smartwatch manufacturers have to really nail specific priorities. What do I want this phone to do? So fitness tracking is perfect. I think that that's an amazing approach. Make it a fitness tracker. That's great. I think that it should do maps. It should do certain voice. I feel I have no problem in driving around, receiving a phone call, and just answering on my watch. I love it. Another stupid thing that I do is I control my music from the Apple Watch whenever I'm on the train. Those stupid things, I find those things to be useful. I find those things to be far better to do on a watch than on the phone. But then absolutely everything else, just do. It's like Samsung phones with their heart rate monitor, with their heart rate sensor at the back. I'm like, really? Like, you really use that? I don't need to know my beats right now. If I'm on a bike, I'm not going to be cycling with my finger pressed on a fingerprint sensor.
Right.
I need
especially
something...
a slippery rounded corner screen phone.
Exactly.
You know what I would want, and I've said this time and time, but I'll be specific this time and give you an example. If I run on the side of the road and I trip and I scrape myself, and you know what, I won't be able to make it to a CVS nearby. I want to be able to press Google Express, get me bandages, deliver it to my GPS location.
Yeah.
That would be great. That would
Yeah.
be that. I want a magic switch. I want Uber. I want, something that, I can actually manipulate in life simply.
And I find the point of the Google Assistant. Like, the Google Assistant is going to take you there. Right now, you can ask Siri on your smartphone, "Hey, give me an Uber, give me a Lyft." I haven't really tried it on the Apple Watch, but again, I feel that we're just fumbling with the whole concept. In my opinion, I think that the smartest thing would be just launch a higher tier smartwatch that includes cellular connectivity, and have people pay extra for that. But don't make that a default feature, because honestly, I don't need cellular connectivity on my watch unless I'm really going to use it to go out in the wild, and it's in those cases where I need cellular connectivity if I want to leave my phone behind. That makes sense. But I think that that's a specific niche, and those people are willing to pay more for a watch. Whereas for the rest of us, we just want a really good smartwatch that focuses on other elemental features. I feel that the first one is, if you're going to charge me $400 for this thing, I really want it to do everything. I really don't. Because here we go back into the problem with lock-in ecosystems. We have the issue where Google Fit doesn't talk with Apple services. Samsung's how do you call this? How do you call Gear Fit?
Gear Fit.
Yeah.
No. But how do you call their
the Tizen?
No. Their fitness service. I forget
S-Health?
it.
Oh,
S-Health.
yeah.
Okay. S-Health doesn't talk with anything. Fitbit doesn't talk with anything. And so the biggest nightmare when you're carrying multiple products is specifically coordinating all that information, where you don't really need
now,
to
be fair, Jaime, that is definitely a first world tech reviewer problem. It's less the problem with the user.
Right. But if you think about it, I know a lot of people that carry a fitness tracker. It's their Fitbit, and then they get a smartwatch. I have a couple of friends that actually have that combination, but then their Fitbit stats don't talk to the Apple Watch stats, and so it becomes kind of a nightmare. It really becomes kind of a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to keep you too much longer, because I know you got to get out there and photograph some snow. But before you bounce, I want to plug something, because this is something we need to circle back to now that we're back from MWC. Is we're going to be doing a little competition between the daily and the weekly, giving out some Honor 6X smartphones. So this is going to be something we're going to finally get back on track. We're going to deliver for you guys. Got some phones to give away. And this will be a fun little crossover, I think, between what you're doing on the daily and what we're doing on the podcast.
And I am just so shocked at how good that Honor 6X is.
Oh, it's such a clean little phone.
Like, honestly, listen, again, this is not, we're not Huawei fanboys here. Huawei has done something ever since the Nexus 6P. It has proven something ever since the Nexus 6P. It can make really good phones. Anything before the Nexus 6P is a waste in the case of Huawei. But then they came up with the amazing Huawei watch, which continues to be one of my favorite watches. And then they've done an amazing job when it comes to smartphones. So yeah, I'm actually, you know me, man. I mean, from things like giveaways, these have to be products that we're proud of, and the Honor 6X is honestly like a very, very good phone. Very good phone.
It's a surprisingly good phone, and it's already, again, Huawei just seems to be a little ahead of the curve. I'm very excited to be looking forward to Moto G5s. I think that's going to be a really great step forward for Moto at this price point, but it's already here on a 6X. You know, you don't have to wait. It's already a product that I think is well executed at this price point, with some very compelling features, of great little camera, snappy performance, and again, another example of Huawei going their own way with their own Kirin processor as opposed to another Qualcomm chipset. They're really shaking that up.
But you know what? I'm not gonna go just yet. Let's talk about this.
You need to talk about the HTC Ultra.
Oh,
By the way,
I didn't want you to hold off, but you know,
well, he can have his snow because there's a nor'easter blowing in on Tuesday, so he can enjoy that.
Well, I also don't want to keep him cooped up inside, because apparently, if there's a nor'easter coming, he might get snowed in. But no, please, because I've spent zero time with the U Ultra. I have no relationship to this phone at all, but from what you've been showing and what I've been able to glean off of your content, I'm a little concerned with HTC's strategy here. If you could enlighten us a little bit.
Here, It goes this way. Why is this phone so large?
Note
Okay.
7.
This is a very beautiful phone. Beautiful. Like, more beautiful than I don't think I've ever handled a phone that looks this good. I mean, whatever it is that they did with the glass, and I wrote it down in some notes in my pre-brief, but the way they were able to curve this glass, and I had to take the case off, and then I'm gonna have to wipe this thing.
Man.
I mean, hey, there you guys are. See, can you see yourselves?
Look at how deep that blue
really is mirror finish there, isn't it?
You know, and I'm just happy because after I ended the pre-brief, I was like, okay, out of all the colors that this phone comes in, if you send us the blue, that's going to be the easiest one to film. Everything else is going to be a nightmare because the black is like pitch, like absorbing black, and then the white you can't even see. The white you can't even see the text. And so this is a very beautiful phone. I am really shocked at this display. So, to my understanding, it uses the same Super LCD 5 that we have on the HTC 10. But I don't know if they've done some tweaking or what. But the blacks are pitch black.
Nice.
Like, you only notice that it's an LCD the moment the moment you turn it on. You can see the bleeding on the display, obviously, because of the LCD. But like, for example, this secondary display is pitch black. Like, you can see no sort of indication.
Because that's definitely the giveaway on the V20 is it has that separate backlight, which just instantly bleeds into your main screen. Exactly.
And oh my God, like, this display is gorgeous. The feel, so it's funny. The phone feels amazing. Weight distribution on this phone is amazing. The problem is, dude, like, I have larger than normal hands, and this is as far as my finger can reach on this thing. This thing is huge.
But people like big phones. They like huge phones.
Okay,
like 6 inches and.
So what is the screen size? Is a 5.7? It's
a
close to the V20.
It's a 5.7 inch display, but this is it placed here. This is a V20. Sorry, V20. This is a G6. This is a G6. Notice the difference. I mean, I'm complaining about the G6.
13 inches, 13.9 square.
I'm complaining about the G6 being tall. Just look at this thing.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Okay, fine.
And there's no stylus to go with it.
I have a V20 here. Hold on. Let's see. I haven't ever.
I'll be really curious to see.
I haven't actually placed them. So it's taller than the V20.
Whoa, that's big.
Yeah, it's taller than the
really
V20,
big.
and it's actually wider than the V20. Slightly wider than the V20.
Holy cow. So this is a Mate 9 with a 5.9 inch screen next to a V20.
Hold on. Let me get the Mate 9. Drawer here.
That's big.
It is a very, very substantial
So
phone.
if it's taller than a V20, then that means it's also significantly taller than this 6-inch screen on a Mate 9. That's nuts.
That is nuts. I don't think there's... I can't find my Mate 9. Must be somewhere around here. But
in his very organized closet of...
I know. I mean, I have the bookcase over there, which is just like a mess. Like, it looks like a Best Buy just vomited all over my bookcase right now.
Where's my
But
Mate
like
9?
in a bad way.
Wait a second. I'm trying to...
How's that book... Well, did you buy it from IKEA?
No, actually, this is a Target... This bookcase is a Target special. It's not even that fancy. It's not even.
We wanted to get you going with your Mate 9.
Okay,
Let's see this.
Hold on. Let me take the case off. I actually like this case on the Mate 9.
I really like the Snap-on cases. I wish the Snap-on case for the P10 was clear.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh, nuts.
Okay. 5.9 inches versus 5.7.
The HTC U Ultra is maybe it's ultra, like maybe a mil.
And it's
also
a
little
wider.
narrower.
Mate 9?
It's also
a little narrower, but still.
No. The HTC is wider. The HTC it is wider, slightly wider. You can tell right here.
Huge.
So, why is this phone so big? I'm sorry, but it is unapologetically large. It is uncomfortable because of that. Like navigating, so the user interface is obviously not designed to take advantage of a screen this big.
Yeah.
It still is the too much space between icons on HTC's UX.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so in a phone this big, it makes a difference. I love things like, again, the stereo speakers are great. Oh my God, the U-Sonic feature. So Juan, so you remember on the HTC 10, you have to connect your headphones and you have to set up the. Okay, this doesn't work that way. So you connect headphones and it's like, you want to set up U-Sonic, and you're like, yes. So it just listens to the audio in the area, and that's it.
Mhm.
And it just tells you
Weird.
it's done.
Okay.
This is good. This is good. The problem is, so HTC's boom sound is, we know that it's bassy. It
Yeah.
favors lows.
They
The
really like making that juicy. Yeah.
Yes, and that's great if you're going to listen to techno or your recent beats. But I mean, I like listening to some acoustics, and
Yeah.
when you have music that favors mids, you can barely hear guitar. You can barely hear the guitar
That's
strings.
too bad.
You can barely hear the guitar strings. And so I actually wrote HTC, and I'm like, okay, the good thing about the HTC 10 is you could tweak those things. You could tweak the highs, but I there is no setting on the U Ultra, sadly. The other thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please, by all means, Juan. By all means.
Well, I was gonna say, isn't that been one of the problems in talking about this phone? Has been, it's also still somewhat an incomplete software experience.
Right.
We're still
Okay.
not seeing
that's
all
where
the things that they promised on the U series.
That's where I'm going to jump in. Actually, I believe we're not going to be able to keep this phone for long. And the problem is that so when we were in the presentation and the briefing, one of the major deals that HTC made was of their artificial intelligence and how they're going to make applications smarter, and how the whole purpose of the secondary display is not a ripoff of the V20. Right. It's not a ripoff of the V20. It's actually there to bring you enhanced information, and it's going to learn from you. And like, if the presentation was an hour long, 49 minutes of the presentation were of the artificial intelligence, 5 minutes were in everybody saying hi, and then the other 5 minutes were about the phone. So wait a second. So you're telling me that you shipped me the phone and the HTC companion application is not ready, and it's not going to be ready for a month. So okay, it's a gorgeous phone. The camera is really good. Obviously, I wish we could have kept it to send it to you for you to do the real camera review. I love the approach to the selfie camera because it has this ultra pixel mentality where it's a 16 megapixel shooter that can become a 4 megapixel camera, ultra pixel camera if you wanted to. I think that's genius. I think that's cool.
That's really smart. Yeah.
How big is the sensor on that? Because you got plenty of room to work with.
Oh no, you know what the biggest question I ask myself is, why is there no headphone jack on the largest phone of the year? Why?
Because
why? Just as John
we went
Q
through
would
that with
say.
the Vault too, though. I think it's a sad play for HTC to lose what was once a defining feature for this brand.
And so the biggest problem with this phone is you have a phone that has a battery the size of the HTC 10, but then you add 0.6 inches to the display.
To the diagonal,
To the diagonal.
Which means more room for that backlight to have to work with.
Plus that secondary always on display. Plus a lot of things. The battery life on this phone is not remarkable.
I would imagine.
It is not remarkable. So, would I pay $700 for this phone? Hey, I mean, I'll give it a fair shot. I'll give it a fair shot for the next week. I actually set it up yesterday. I'm planning to do an additional video on it tomorrow. There are really good things about this phone. Don't take it wrong, but I really find it hard for this to be a good selling point for people if it gets a lot of things that the trends of smartphone design are going the opposite direction. Sure, everybody's doing glass, that's great, but I mean, why can't I get 5.7 inches this way?
Yeah.
It defeats the purpose. It really defeats the purpose.
To hear that the Sense Companion is it's already shipped in Taiwan. It's shipped in India. It's shipped in the UK, and today it's just started shipping in the US. Wow. And we're still. And you said, when did you get that message that the companion would like not be here for a month.
Yesterday. So if the HTC, there's no hard date. There's no
It's
hard
1
date.
month out of 24 that you get service. Software service life. That's my contention.
Give me a second. I'm about to put it back in its case.
Oh, boy.
Give me a second.
he's toweling the thing off.
I guess, I mean, because like one of the things that I really pride our channel on is that we don't deliver just like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, worth it or not worth it.
No.
I think that's toxic to the discussion of gadgets. But I'm really racking my brain to find who is the audience for a phone like this. I mean, pointing to an iPhone, pointing to a Galaxy, it's pretty easy to find a consumer base where that product is a good fit for. And even recently, like I can point to reasons why a Huawei or an LG, there's a good fit for a certain demographic, even if it's not a broad mass market kind of gadget. And I'm properly stuck. I don't know
if this were if this phone were in an island on its own, it would be an amazing phone. But sadly, because it's not, I would immediately tell you just go get yourself a OnePlus 3T.
Go get a referrished Galaxy Note 7. How about that? Let's just go with that.
No, don't. We're gonna have to.
I'm sorry, but $750. I would rather get a OnePlus 3T and save $350. Pretty much.
I keep bringing up the Note, but that's what it's supposed to replace, right? Or that's what the plot of circumstances.
But the Note wasn't the Galaxy Note wasn't this big, dude.
Yeah, the Galaxy Note was smaller than the Mate 9 for sure. Yeah.
So the Galaxy Note that's what made the phone special. It was almost the same size as the Galaxy S7 Edge. With a larger screen, and so I mean we're going into the trend.
Taught us that if you pack too many features into a phone, you are not going to get a serviceable product.
But I mean, like again, that design flaw notwithstanding, I mean, obviously they were sort of a Greek tragedy flying a little too close to the sun there. But when you hold that phone up next to a Mate 9, and the Mate 9 having a significantly larger display is a smaller overall form factor with a 30% larger battery at the same time, it does make me question, like, again, I have a really hard time trying to pin down in my brain who would be a good fit for a phone like this. I had the same problem with the Bolt. I don't know who the Bolt is for. So I'm really concerned with HTC's current strategy right now, because I think they're trying some really interesting things, but I don't think they've got the right consumer demographics in their sights for who would be interested. I mean, even a BlackBerry Key 1, I have a much easier time suggesting to certain members of my family and friends who a Key 1 would be for, even with it being as expensive a phone as it is.
I have to agree. And, the problem is when you have phones like the G6, like, unless the Galaxy S7, unless the Galaxy S8 and the iPhone edition or whatever they're going to be called, unless these companies are able to pull this much punch into this chassis, I it's really hard for me to try to sell this. So this is the problem with the U Ultra. This phone would have been perfect last year from a design standpoint, but it's got the largest camera hump I've ever seen. I think the phone stands with the camera hump if I don't put the case. It's huge. Whereas you have no camera hump. You have no camera hump. You have a 5.7-inch display. You've got a larger battery on this G6 than on this. Yeah. So give me a logical, and you have two camera sensors that are not small. Just give me a logical explanation to why this phone needs to be this large.
And I don't have it for you.
And I don't think HTC does either. Again, I think this is sort of an artifact of an experimentation with design, and I worry that HTC is going through what LG went through last year with the G5. They're trying things, and that's good. We want experimentation, but I don't think they've got an end game.
Right now. On a positive note, Please, by all means, Jules. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
so I will, I have some Taiwanese blood, so I have this, inner sense of, having to defend HTC here.
Oh,
all disclosures.
Jules,
But
Jules, please, hate to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
But they're I think that they would peg this, its CEO or president said that they're always interested in pushing with the latest chipset, and I think that they came into this situation knowing that they had some time, they had at least one model to play with, one model season to play with before they could do something in the middle of the year for the
No,
845.
I agree. And so here's the thing. I'm not sure if this is the only flagship. I think it's too early, so I do believe there's more from HTC.
The president went out and said it.
There's going to be more from HTC. I'm sure of it because of the time frame that we're on. I feel that this phone it's not well cut out. Again, I'm going to give it a fair shot. I honestly, again, it's a beautiful piece of hardware. Beautiful piece of hardware. I don't think I've seen a phone this pretty, but I've never seen a phone this inefficient as well when it comes to design. For me, the cake of inefficiency was the iPhone 7 Plus. But this phone like really gives it a run for its money when it comes to it from a design perspective. From user ergonomics, I mean, my hands are significantly large. They are large. I've got freak hands, and for this phone to give me trouble holding it, that's saying things.
Yeah.
That's saying things. So, anyways, I'm really liking as I started my unboxing of this phone. I love that we're already in review season, Juan. We're gonna be very busy. I'm actually working on video 7 out of 8 for the week. Yeah, it's been a rough couple of days, but I think it's worth it. I again, devices like the G6, devices like the P10 show us company that are pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we just can't wait for the rest of the companies to ship in and say yes, this is us. Starting with Samsung, when on March 29, I can't wait to see what their approach is going to be to design. They did an amazing job with the S7 Edge. They tried hard with the Note 7, and I can't wait to see what they've learned.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see both of you at the events.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. Jules. That's going to be awesome. Yeah.
We might even have Adam on board, too.
Adam is going to be there. Adam is going to be there. Well, yes. No. It's going to be a great show. I'm going to love it. Yeah.
Los tacos for lunch or breakfast.
Oh, agreed.
Or both.
Agreed.
Yes,
Sushi
both.
Samba, maybe.
Well, we probably should get on. We still have to cover some news, and we've been running this a little longer than
I really need to leave, guys. Yes. No, I really appreciate the time. It's so hard for me to get in the podcast. That for me is such an honor. Thank you so much.
and we'll be following up with Jaime and the Pocketnow Daily so that we can give away those Honor 6Xs. So stay tuned for that. Definitely looking forward to doing some fun.
Why can't they be on the lookout? You were about to tell them to be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout. I think it was because I was about to mix that with stay tuned. I think I was about to say stay on the tuned lookout or something weird like that.
I'm gonna end my participation with the size of the LG Watch Sport box.
Look at that.
So either the box is really big. I don't know what joke to make there about head size versus box size. So I'm gonna leave that one alone.
We're gonna leave it there. But guys, thanks so much. Such a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, man. We'll catch you later.
See you.
See you later, Jaime. All right, so we got plenty of more news to cover, as well as a discussion topic, and I think our show has been running for about an hour 15 now. So let's see what we can do.
Let's blitz through this really, really, really quickly. We did have iPhone 6 news to talk about. The age of the iPhone 6 in India and Taiwan, and we're looking at Apple trying to service markets, I think, appropriately, with some slightly older hardware. The iPhone 6, looking at 16 gigabyte phones. I'm not entirely sure what to make of this.
Here's the odd part. Here's
Apple
the odd part
tax
of
in
things.
other countries.
Yeah, so Taiwan is, and there's a iPhone 6 2017 edition. It's explicitly sold as that. Uh, Taiwan Mobile is selling this version. It's been updated. So the iPhone 6 ran on 16, 64, and one. No, it didn't have a 128 back then. It was just
Right.
64 gigabytes as the top memory option. This one, on for some reason, has a 32 gigabyte hard disk, which we first, Apple's updated its 6S to feature the 32 gigabyte, I believe. Is that correct? For its older model.
Yeah. That's right.
So yeah, this is somewhat of an interesting move here in Taiwan and China. What I don't get though is when we come over to, so I mean it's being offered at like $255 at
Right.
most, but it's a carrier promo. It's being tied with offers and plans and all that stuff, so the price varies. In terms of India, somehow we're really couching this as a lower hit, a lower
Right.
end hit for that market, which is not, it doesn't have as much buying power typically as Taiwan. Now, people in one of the last Pocket Now weeklies have criticized me for talking about gross national product and all that.
Right.
And per capita, there's a very steep gradient when it
Yeah.
comes to how much each person makes and what is affordable to them and whatnot. So
Hmm.
in terms of this, 30,000 rupees for an original iPhone 6. As far as we know, this does not have the updated disk. It's 16
Right.
gigabytes, as Amazon puts it. And considering that Apple has been wanting to launch its first party retail stores in the country,
Hmm.
it's and it's been pushing through with like requests for being able to sell used iPhones and being
Yeah.
able to evade
Well,
taxes for some
I
long
guess
yeah.
I guess I just question why this would be a good strategy for Apple because it's putting out hardware which is going to fall significantly behind on updated software. I mean, the iPhone 6 is going to start struggling with newer versions of iOS. Like that doesn't seem like a great strategy to get other countries around the world really considering Apple products.
Yeah, it's not really, I mean, they want to be there. It's clear that India is their 4G is growing. Reliance Jio is building out its network, and everyone's been making a huge fuss about it. And there's also the fact that India is digitizing its currency for the most part, or
Yeah.
at least taking away a lot of cash notes. So
Right.
there's definitely room for there's lots of disruption. Apple wants to be a part of it. I get it. It's just we're still not at that stage where that it's kind of wheeling and dealing is
Yeah.
mostly accepted, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I have some issues with this. For other countries out there, I mean, if you're looking at an Apple product, I would recommend at least trying to get to an iPhone 6s or an iPhone SE. But Apple's strategy might not be terrible, considering that the Galaxy S8 might be further delayed. So if people were looking at a premium smartphone solution and they weren't really wowed by what LG or Huawei had to offer, then it looks like it's going to take them a little longer to get their hands on the next flagship Galaxy S release.
It has not been talked about in public, as far as we knew from Evan Blass and from others. This was going to be an April 21 launch for a global launch. Now, there was word that Koreans would see this, the home country would see this earlier, but that was initially moved back to the global date of April 21. And then
Right.
both dates have been pushed back another week. And no cause has been mentioned in terms of anything that we can, tell. But there is an underlying factor of we saw this in a Digitimes report that 10 nanometer chips have just not been coming out the way that manufacturers have wanted them to come out.
Yeah.
And all of these phones that we're seeing with the 835, with Exynos 8895,
Hmm.
and even with the like the next generation Apple A chip, those are
Hmm.
based off of 10 nanometer fabrications. And all the companies, TSMC, Samsung, it's producing both Snapdragon and Exynos. They're having low yield rates, and they can't get them, up to satisfactory levels. So there's so much concern in terms of being able to, watch this space, especially when you have tons of other manufacturers trying to get into the pool of what Samsung will take away. It's like
Right.
Samsung already has hogged up so much inventory, and Sony is being touted as the first Snapdragon 835 phone. There's supposedly a Moto Z 2017 that's going to get a Snapdragon 835. The list goes on. I'm not sure if we're seeing
yield and shipping is going to be a big deal here, and I think this is also why Huawei wasn't wrong. So they're not on the 10 nanometers, but the power performance ratio of that Kirin has been blowing me away. And if you want that kind of power now and you're concerned about shipping times, a Mate 9, a P10 might do you just fine, especially if we see that in a future Honor phone coming up. I guess like this isn't necessarily terrible for Samsung, seeing as how I love, Evan Blass was sort of commenting on the pushback, and it doesn't seem like there's been any significant pressure that Samsung foresees looking at the competition right now.
I mean, it's the dam. It's the dam that's holding all the water back. So as long like it can do whatever as long as it's tall enough, and
We'll see.
it's pretty damn tall right now. So moving on to talking about what Google might do in the second half of the year. Rick Osterloh, who's head of hardware at Google, has said that he's very interested in keeping the Pixel on a tick-tock process. So we might see Pixel 2 coming this fall. And it's still going to be premium. This is still going to be a top-notch phone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
People have been talking about, reducing the bezels on it and complaining because when you open up things to the tech public, tech-obsessed public.
They ruined my life. Bezels killed my family.
Indeed. So it's that there's that, and then there's also the fact that I wanted to scroll through the story just to make sure that I didn't.
Well, there's this Pixel 2B has been throwing a lot of people off, and I think what we'll probably see is a reference design for Android on Android 1.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, a number of people have been pointing to that as the potential rumor that this Pixel 2B, I don't think it would be smart for Google to dilute the Pixel brand. You keep that premium, you keep that high end, you start to get people identifying with Pixel in the same way they do with the iPhone. But seeing as how we are looking at an Android 1 launch in North America, that whatever they're making alongside the Pixel could be a vanguard product for an entry level or a mid-ranger price point there.
And the 2B is not guaranteed for launch at all at this point. So
it would make sense that they're just kind of experimenting with what they can do at that price point.
Indeed. Speaking of Google, we stick with Mountain View for another minute more, just to talk about what may be coming on Android O. And this, we haven't been talking about software features. There haven't been many rumors about them, but one of them is talking about copy pasting and lots of text. It's always interesting to see, what we can do with text in terms of highlighting them, how we highlight them. I think one of the big deals about Android N was like better parsing for, highlighting.
Right. Ooh, the parsing. It's delicious and better.
Yeah, but
you can totally you can totally tell by the pixels that the parsing is like way better. So,
well, in terms of scrubbing through, text.
Yeah, I mean, because you can tell because it's really cinematic process. Too. Because that parsing's at like 24 frames per second, just like a movie is. So it's way better.
Anyways, copy less is what's being characterized here, and basically it's just Google. It may be implemented through Gboard, which is Google's first-party keyboard, or maybe software level, kernel level. I'm not sure. We're not sure at this point. But it's talking about scanning what you're reading in terms of being mission critical. So if you're talking with a friend saying, where would you like to go today for lunch? And you're looking up a place on OpenTable or whatnot, it will recognize addresses. And then once you start typing your friend again, oh, look, there's the address on the autocomplete suggestions. you can tap that, and it will include that in your body of text.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat.
Some cool stuff. I mean, definitely some of those usability features that we were just complaining about with Jaime. You know, in getting your smart assistants, your AIs, your digital butlers. To actually start contributing more to those conversations, to have that be a core of the OS and not just something that kind of runs in addition to the different skins or apps or services that are on your phone, I think would be a huge step forward.
And also more finger gestures for the home screen, I think. So if you're familiar with EMUI, which I'm sure that you are at this point,
pretty well acquainted.
You'd be
EMUI.
Swiping C on the home lock screen to access the camera, or knuckle just.
Oh no, I can't. Like the knuckle dragging on a Huawei never works for me. No, I mean, like this is something that I think we've been seeing Google try and tackle a little bit more. When you look at the app drawer gesture for the Pixel, and it's now going to be coming on the Moto Gs. I think the Moto G4 just got an update where it has a more Pixel style launcher and Google Assistant on board, and definitely on the G5, and it's going to be on Nokia phones, which we're going to be talking about later in the show. That is a really smart implementation of a feature that we already are well familiar with. Instead of a button to open up your app drawer, you just slide up from the bottom of the screen. So incorporating more organic interactions with your phone like that is definitely something that I've been a fan of on a Nova launcher, where a 2-finger swipe will do something, a single swipe down from your home screen will do something, and you can tailor fit how your hand works with the phone to better interact with those kinds of services. I think Google needs to be at the forefront for that, as I think that'll definitely be something that takes Android up a notch.
Yeah, take the lead away from Nova Launcher and all those third-party ones.
I mean, like every major Google improvement, every major Android improvement has come from a third-party skin first or some kind of add-on launcher. It would only make sense that we're seeing that is still a compelling reason to put software on top of Android, so eventually Android just needs to swallow it up.
Personally, I can't do with those stupid gestures because it forces me to have to remember them. It's not apparent that they're available to me because once I log them in, I forget about it. So
Right.
I can't remember that I can like swipe a C to access the camera. It's just...
No, I don't. Especially like when a double tap, like a power button or a double tap volume rocker works so much more consistently.
Indeed. Switching back to Huawei, speaking of EMUI, let's talk about arms races, Cold War arms races.
I thought that was an incendiary way to describe RAM on a smartphone. It was like, yeah, it's just like when the Soviets and those Yanks were pointing nuclear weapons at each other. That's what your 8 gigabytes of RAM are like.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, if we're dealing with a multinational OEMs in any case in this commercial war, at least, and every manufacturer has their populations to care about, and most of them are general consumer facing, but some of them are spec heads, especially in China, where there is the obsession of getting that silicone as maxing as possible. So in terms of that, Huawei has been kind of conservative in upping its RAM, and RAM being the memory that is easily refreshed and actively pulled in so that you can multitask a lot. It's been doing 4 gigs for the most part up until the P9 or maybe the Mate 9.
Well, actually, the P9 I think launched with 3 gigs as the base model for most regions. Yeah. So I mean, when we're saying that they're very conservative, I mean we mean that they have been very conservative. And so for the Mate 9 to be a 4 gigabyte phone,
and it's
for the P10,
Mate 9 was 6 gigabytes. It was their first.
There was an option
gigabyte.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but that this is, I think, going to their point is, I mean, not to make the joke, 640K of RAM is enough for anybody. I really am struggling to find what the advantages of having more RAM on Android is at the moment. I mean, obviously in the future, we will be using larger applications and more demanding pieces of software. But right now, I feel that they're not completely wrong. That when you play with phones with 4 gigabytes of RAM that are doing a good job of managing background services and are trying to keep you focused on what you have on your screen, that this hasn't really proven to be any significant detriment in terms of general usability and UI performance.
I think
they're
yeah. Yeah,
Their
8 GB
notion
is
for resource management, I think, isn't wrong. I think they at least have a strategy for how they manage the power of your phone, and it seems to provide a really snappy experience. So I haven't had any major complaints.
8 GB seems to be jumping the shark at this point, especially because if it's if it's there and you're not using it, the thought is that it's wasted RAM, and if you don't find any way to fill that up in the maybe 2 years that you use your phone, like, really,
Right.
what
I like,
is it
again, I
for?
think the OnePlus 3T brings up an interesting point in delivering more RAM for consumers to use. I would be curious to know, what is that RAM really being utilized for? And if it's just, well, multitasking seems to be a little bit snappier with the core apps and services that I use. Again, I haven't run into any roadblocks on any other phones really holding me back from a similar experience. I mean, Galaxy S7s, HTC 10s, LGs. Well, actually, LG always is a little flaky when it comes to multitasking performance. I probably shouldn't put them in the same category. But you look at a Mate 9, and my Mate 9 has aged really well for having all of that extra EMUI stuff on there. And the P10 is snappy as
It's
crap.
flying.
So, yeah.
So I mean, you have to have the right attitude, you have to have the right eyes for it, and you don't have to, you might not necessarily be happy with what you see on a phone to phone comparison where
True.
one person opens the same app at the same time. So you give and you take, and you actually find out what you want.
Well, and then also, I mean, it does kind of speak to how much our phones cost and the availability of those parts, which takes us right into another story that we've got about Apple. As we're looking at what it's going to take to fulfill the orders of all of the different parts that are going to go into the next generation iPhone, it does look like these companies, these subcontractors that build those parts, are really trying to ramp up production and fulfill that initial launch batch of devices.
It's not necessarily that. Even I think it's a way of gaining clout with Apple and and being able to at least raise some prices, because we're talking about two Taiwanese firms, that's TSMC, which makes the Apple A chips, and Foxconn, which does most of the assembly of iPhones, are teaming up for a joint bid for Toshiba's semiconductor unit, which provide and they provide the iPhone with flash memory and they also do a whole bunch of other IC stuff. But that's going to be happening on March 29. And there's certainly enough time for everything to work out so that well, it's not going to be this year, actually. It's going to be a 2018 iPhone that will see any effects on the bottom lines. But in terms of what we might see, because Apple is going to be interested in diving down and diversifying.
Totally.
I'm not sure where we'll go in terms of, are they going to go deeper into China or into Vietnam in terms of finding components, or are they going to loosen up on their standards? Because I mean, it's possible.
Well, I mean, there's every opportunity for Apple to also look at not the component manufacturing, but the assembly in other areas too, where we know they've been breaking into South America. There's potential that under the Trump administration they could just come back to the United States, which I find to be a little bit dubious. But if other companies can start to leverage their positions, like TSMC and Foxconn, then they, I think, have the right play in dictating what the cost of these components for Apple is. I think, like how a number of companies are getting a little fed up with doing business only with Qualcomm for chipsets and radios, I kind of think that manufacturers and component suppliers are getting a little fed up with the way that Apple can kind of lock up a whole chain of manufacturing or a whole assembly chain, and then Apple can dictate what those services are worth. I think we're kind of coming back around, that these companies are going to start dictating to Apple, no. This is what our assembly is worth in terms of profit margins. This is what flash memory will be worth if you're going to continue doing business with us. I think it's just going to be the ebb and flow of how this business takes place.
And hopefully, we don't see prices rising too high for OnePlus's sake, because this is going to be a pretty it's going to be a pretty tough ride in order to see if they're going to do a Snapdragon 835 phone for the OnePlus maybe 5, because of course you're dealing with an Asian company, and Asian languages have 4 as the homophone for death. So OnePlus
Right.
5 we're talking about here, or maybe a black OnePlus 3T. There's a freaking wallpaper that Evan Bless leaked out. I'm not sure of the actual resolution, like the final resolution of the.
I mean, that could also just be
wallpaper.
some kind of like cool promo image too. I mean,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not too,
that too.
I'm not too keyed up
Yeah.
on like wallpaper stuff. That's never been a rumor thing that gets me super Twitter pated.
Yeah, that's to be expected. And but I just wanted to mention OnePlus because in the mess that we're already in terms of the whole components thing and the whole waiting like months on months to see
Right.
phone ship thing. Like OnePlus is just gonna it's not gonna be their year. I don't think it's gonna be their year.
Okay, so no, I think this is what could be really compelling about OnePlus's strategy in 2017 is because of the 3T that took a ton of pressure off them to deliver in the first half of the year. I think their notion on pushing just a little bit more premium and delivering the 821 as an update over the OnePlus 3 didn't upset many of the OnePlus 3 owners because it's a nice little spec
Yeah,
bump, but
it
it's not
is.
some radical change to performance. It was just a little improvement here. And at the same time, it allowed them to not have to keep selling a different variant of the phone. They just shifted their manufacturing over to the different chipset, and that I think helps streamline their process. So then once the 835 is starting to deliver at better yields and the prices on that start to drop down, that's when I feel that they'll have a good position in the market to jump on a OnePlus 4, OnePlus 5, whatever it is that they're going to call it. And in the meantime, they can do something like just offer a color refresh or offer a fashion brand refresh or something like that to keep OnePlus people satisfied that the brand is still doing stuff. And then we'll see a proper new version of the flagship, maybe around the same time this year as we saw the 3T launch last year. I think it's a good play for them. I think they could do well with that strategy.
Well, you think they have enough inventory of the 821 because things are shutting down for current gen
Well,
chips
but
in
that's
favor
that,
of 835.
well, that's just it. Is like I think their timing on 820 to 821 was on point, and when the 821 manufacturing properly shuts off, it's only going to do that once we see better yields on the 835. Because I mean, they've got to keep the 821 rolling, even for phones like the G6 and the U Ultra. They won't be super high unit sales, but you got to keep that chipset around long enough to fulfill those orders. And I think OnePlus will get to benefit from that transition once we move from the 21 to the 35. It might leave a number of people out in the cold, like because we know that they're still having issues fulfilling demand on the OnePlus 3T, at least from their product sales numbers. But if someone gets stuck in that interim where they were trying to buy a OnePlus 3T, they shift over to something else, that person will have the benefit again of just moving to whatever OnePlus ships after that point. If they're really smart about that back order strategy, then they'll just move people over to the newer phone. And again, maybe it's another $15 or $20 or $50 premium. That might be kind of a bummer. But again, I feel if it's executed properly and they're on the pulse for when that shift happens, that this could do really well for a OnePlus 5.
What hasn't been executed properly? You keep talking about the LG V20 and it being just horribly launched, and LG does
That
not
was a
know what
great
it wants to do.
segue. I love
It's
reminding
it's
people of the
horrible,
terrible
it's
V20
blah blah
launch.
blah. And you know what? We're going to prove you wrong here, because LG V20, it's coming. It's coming to 3 carriers in Canada. And prior to this, actually, there were a couple of carriers on the smaller end of things, the new end of things. Freedom Mobile, we talked about for one, but also Quebec's Videotron. And now we're just hearing that LG has nailed deals with Bell and I believe Rogers. Yeah, Bell and Rogers, and also Bell's sub-brand Fido, but Bell and Rogers, like, I mean, admittedly, it's about the same time that they'll be launching the G6, but
Mhm.
there,
But you know
there
what?
has been there's been demand. They have
No,
LG said there's been demand.
I absolutely think that this is going to be a good play for LG, and this is evidence that I'm hoping we're seeing LG start to figure out their place in the market, because I think there's a great idea here. In the absence of a Note 7, where people would still be shopping a Note 7 today, we have a couple months before people will really be able to get their hands on a Galaxy S8, that you can launch a little big strategy now. You know, for Canada, it's still going to be pretty fresh to go into a Bell or to a Rogers carrier store, walk in, see a kiosk with a G6, a cute little phone that's really pretty, and then the V20, the big baller diesel truck phone for people who want to get more stuff done. Having those side by side, I think, would make a great visual impact. And again, their design languages are similar enough that they look like cousins. They look like products of the same manufacturer. So
And
while I'm
like,
still going to be critical of LG's, branding and advertising strategy, I think there's still plenty of reasons why a V20 could do well in the Canadian market, even with the G6 besting it in a number of key areas.
well, blessing and a curse, we make that move from an 820 to 821, but it's not, again, as you mentioned with the 3 and the 3T, it's not really much of a move that, people can be really mad about. So, hey,
Yeah,
what is...
they're going to be interesting overlaps. I think there are some definitely some things to point to for like headphone technology, removable battery, things like that. And then the flip side for people who are, who want that peace of mind of a better water resistant phone or a better drop protection phone, they've got some really interesting splits between the G6 and the V20 that a consumer can really pick and choose what's most important to them. And I think that's the best way to introduce these products to Canada, is to have both of those options available.
Not sure if it was intentional, but I mean, it's
It
right
certainly
there.
wasn't.
It's right there, at least. Hey, you know how we've been ragging about branding and being angry about all that stuff. You wanna know about what the Huawei P9 Lite 2017 is?
Yeah, I really don't get this at all. What
you want to know what the Huawei P8 Lite 2017 is? Do you want to know? You want to know about what the Huawei Nova Lite is? What about the Honor 8 Lite? Can you tell me what those things are? Can you tell me?
I can't. And this is one of the things that I think is so crazy when we look at, because the joke that Jules is getting at is that they're all basically the same phone with 4 different names for different regions and for different markets. And then you look at phones like the 6X, the Honor 6X, which, for them to have this much of a spread, I really don't understand this strategy at all. I think this is
exactly the same phone. It's exactly the same phone.
Yeah, that's just it. I think this is way too confusing. I think this is a frustrating exercise in branding. I also think it's priced outside of some really compelling competition when we're looking at prices that are hovering under the $400 price point for a device that I don't think really competes at that tier, unless it's one of the only options in that market to hit that. This is the same problem I had with the Nova last year. I loved the design of the Nova. I loved the form factor. The performance was on point. I really thought it was a compelling device. Had it been released at a slightly lower price tier to compete against some of the other premium mid-rangers. This is definitely, I feel, a misstep on Huawei's part to confuse their own brand strategy when they're doing such a good job at the premium end. Mate and P make sense. To dilute the P branding like this, I think, is a step backwards.
And there's the involvement of the Nova brand too, which was already a mid-ranger, placard, and now it's been like.
Well, and Nova is something that I even question if they should continue the Nova brand. The Nova really seems like it was born out of the failure of Google to keep Huawei on board for the Pixel. And I think that's why we ended up with the Nova and the Nova Plus. They had the the design ready to go. They slapped some components inside and they were able to ship a phone. This to me doesn't seem like it's a wise midpoint for Huawei to keep investing in. I kind of feel like they have other products and other product lines that can carry this over better.
And you mentioned the price range on this. It was rumored originally that we would be seeing it around 240-ish in terms of euro.
That kind of makes sense, yeah.
So I'm not sure what the heck the premium is for Turkey, which we're seeing for the Huawei P9 Lite 2017. But
well, and especially for a market like Turkey, I don't feel that pricing that even higher is going to convince people that Huawei is a brand they should be doing business with.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting the businesses going here, let's talk about what Nokia is doing to further its brand to restart.
I feel because like we mentioned I think we talked about it a little bit in our last podcast, talking about the 3310 kind of hijacking the show, and I thought that was a huge misstep. We did get to spend a little time playing with the Nokia 3, 5, and 6. Jaime tackled those videos because when I tried to go over to the Nokia booth, it was an epic mess of colossal proportions where you had this huge Nokia booth, and then most of that booth was dedicated to like private meetings, and then tucked way off to the side in this one little corner is this table with people swarming all over it for the phones, and it was just not possible to get more than a couple photos of that phone. But Jaime went back and he was able to actually schedule a proper sit down with these phones. And I think Nokia is returning to their roots. They have a reputation for delivering inexpensive handsets. They really satisfy the emerging. They used to be the key company satisfying the emerging 3G markets out around the world. Now the same thing with LTE emerging in more markets. I think they're trying to get the brand back up and running for those consumers around the world. And when we criticize different products, and again, we're coming at this from a first world country kind of perspective, these devices really aren't for users like me or users that are more apt to be watching or listening to podcasts like this. This is really about bringing a higher quality smartphone experience to people around the world who maybe don't have access to, just solid, dependable hardware with good design, pretty aesthetics. And so I think there's certain moves, like the idea of them going stock Android. I think that's a smart play. I think that's a good move for them, especially for future support. That hopefully this means these will be well supported products, and that we don't have people in these emerging markets left out in the cold on devices that don't receive security updates or don't get bug fixes and patches. Easy for me to say.
Easy for you to say. And, Pure Android is one of their main tax for its smartphones, at least. I mean, can we? I know that we don't want to continue glomming over the 3310, but at least I want to express some disdain over it because it's the popular thing. It's the thing that people cling to from glory days of 2000, totally. And there's definitely demand for it. Carphone Warehouse is piling up the pre-orders, and everyone's going to be waiting in at least through April through May, and even for the smartphones, they're going to be in May. For the Nokia 6, which is the top end of the budget phones that they released at MWC, that's going to be expected in June. So it's not really. I mean, before all of that too, we're also talking about a Nokia smartphone, maybe the Nokia 8 with a Snapdragon 835. So is Nokia? I mean, is Nokia really? It has to build from somewhere, but is it
totally
building at the right pace with the right blocks? Is what
I actually think that this is the right play for the brand. I think the brand reputation outside of us having the warm fuzzies over the 3310 was still predicated on this notion of delivering really premium experiences for not a lot of cash. I mean, let's not forget that even under Microsoft's tutelage, when we were still talking about Nokia Windows phones, that far and away the top sellers were the 5 and 600 series Lumias. For as much as we really wanted to see that sexy flagship, I can't tell you the number of people in my circles of friends who would pick up $100 Lumia 500 and be genuinely impressed by the experience. I had a couple friends that went over completely, that they stuck with Windows Phone for a really long time because it was cheaper to replace the whole phone than it would have been to replace a cracked screen on an Android or an iPhone. I feel like this is probably the best way for them to rebuild, is to go bottom up, is to make sure that they've got really inexpensive solutions for people that want a nice entry level phone. And then you can start building into the tiers of more premium stuff later once you've kind of gotten that groundswell support going. I think the trickiest thing for Nokia is going to be their mid-range strategy, where when we look at the 5 series, for example, what really delineates a 3 from a 5 from a 6? And that's where I think Nokia has always been a little kludgy. Back in the day, it was, what really separates a 6 from a 7 from an 800 series Lumia. That's really tough to explain, and you have a lot of compromises where a 7 series has a great selfie camera, but the 8 series has the better rear camera, and then the 900 series has wireless charging, and you end up with too much fracturing. I think their entry level game is going to be super strong. I'm really hoping that their premium game, that their flagship game, is really strong. I'm always nervous with Nokia in the middle, where I think they clutter up their catalog with too many SKUs, with too many minor differences between them.
Would you feel safe to say that the 3 and 5 are their own thing as opposed to the 6, which is clearly in the middle? Or do you think that even with the 6, with its Snapdragon 435 and its other specs, that it's still kind of strafing that low to mid line?
No, that's just it. Is like, I think it absolutely is strafing. So what is it that delineates it from the lower end model, and what will delineate it? Because I'm assuming that we'll probably at some point end up with 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't believe that Nokia can restrain themselves from having that shotgun spread of different SKUs across different regions for different consumers. That to me is really going to be like every other company that we've been talking about in this podcast and in numerous others. Will they have the tools to explain to consumers, why do you want this phone versus why do you want that phone, and what benefits those phones bring? And increasingly, in as competitive a market as smartphones have become, I think it's really hard to capture a general consumer's attention long enough for them to understand, oh, no, you're not going to be happy with a 3. You really want to move to a 5. Or, you know what, the 5 might be overkill for you. You can save a little cash and get the 3. That's I think, going to be their biggest challenge. And I'm not sure any company is really equipped to properly have that conversation.
I think it's especially tough when you have a 40 to 50 euro difference. It could mean the world for them, but especially at that low of a range where we're talking about 40, 50 being a third of the price of a 3 or a 5. Like that's it's the dynamics are probably different in Europe than in the rest of the world than the U.S., and we haven't heard of anything coming to the U.S. at least on our end. So, what is Nokia's goal in terms of?
Well, I mean, domain? I think it's definitely to sell as many phones as they possibly can.
Well, domain at least. I mean, where does it think it has the best success? Because it knows that it has Europe, it has China, that it's brand cash, but elsewhere, it's all these odd little pockets. I mean, we just saw BlackBerry partner up with a Indonesian partner to release the BlackBerry Aurora, which is this odd mid-ranger kind of thing. Like, does Nokia have other enclaves it can rely on, or can it, full surge, the whole world? Because it still has that kind of it's not in places right now that it used to be, and it still has plenty of 3310 love, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, see, that's unfortunately, I think, where we're gonna all have to play the wait and see game. It really does come down to what kind of execution we can expect from HMD getting their manufacturing lines in place, getting their distribution lines in place. And it's going to be a conversation that for a while I think we're going to be excluded from in North America, because it seems like their strategy really is to focus on entry level and emerging markets in a way that we're pretty well satisfied. And I don't know that, it really does kind of come down to that Nokia idea of ignoring the US carrier market, right? They never wanted to play ball with AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile and Sprint. And so they just walked away. They took their ball and they went home. And I don't think that mentality has changed at HMD. I think the old Nokia guard are kind of the same mindset, where they're kind of fine not playing with us especially in the United States. Maybe they'll open their doors. Maybe they'll do better with Canada. But they're kind of fine just letting us kind of stick with what we've already got. And if they eventually get to us, great, but it doesn't seem to be a priority. So that's where I think this conversation is going to take even longer, because if we're always looking at it from outside and we're always trying to get our hands on international and unlocked units, and we can't really join the conversation, it's going to be like it was back in the old N95 days. Amazing mobile, smart, pocketable computers that only a very niche audience are going to be getting their hands on here in America. So it's an oddity. I mean, it really is a game of
Thrones.
Well, yeah. Nokia should start just making drones. I mean, they're making amazing 3D 360 cameras. So, all the other things that this company is sort of badged and branded on in terms of really high tech solutions. The smartphone game is something that I think that they still want to they still want to owe the lineage to, but I don't think it's what the Nokia brand, the Nokia company, is really interested in, outside of just satisfying that kind of nostalgic remembrance that we had for those products. And if that's enough to make them profitable and to keep them executing some cool design, great. I don't know that they have many more expectations beyond that, other than can they create a climate of consistent growth that can then embolden them to take bigger risks with future products.
So I didn't plan for this, but do you want to do a quick little nightcap on social media? Because I saw you on Twitter replying to our old friend, Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher, talking about your H.265, your high efficiency video codec little vloggy thingy.
Right.
And I know that, it may be a little bit above, the general consumer's heads, but, it may be like people are starting to edit videos now, or, at least collaging them using their automatic, algorithmic GoPro apps or whatever the heck that Huawei is including. But HEVC, it's for content makers, for inside baseball, we're content makers. It's still that extra step that we have to do every time we load something with HEVC. It has to go through Handbrake, it has to go through Super, or there's some
Right.
it's just nuts. And you promoted your little vlog, and then Michael Fisher's like, no, it's too soon for that. And
Well,
the
this
native
is
professional
one of those things,
editors.
and I don't mean to completely call out Michael Fisher here, but I mean,
Well,
he took
Danny's
the
in this
bait.
too.
This is where I have a huge problem with the current state of geekery in the tech landscape. Is, when did we all become so conservative? This isn't anything new. When we switched over to H.264 compression on DSLRs, and we had the first generation of DSLRs that shot video, we found ways to work with that footage because it was great. So what are people complaining about when it comes to things like 4K video? Is that it takes a huge chunk out of your storage. I mean, look at the people that were rocking iPhones where, oh, you shouldn't bother shooting 4K. You just don't shoot 4K because it's going to eat up all your storage. Well, that's not really a solution.
Michael makes a good point in that that he just responded 7 minutes ago. There's a lot of stuff that happens during our podcast, if you can't tell. Backing up H.265 to Google Photos is broken. People think their videos are safe. They hit delete to save space, and boom, they're gone forever. So there are some things that the back end really needs to update. There are some.
See, so this is what we explain in the vlog, and this is why I feel that the ire of this shouldn't be put on the company that's trying to solve a problem. The problem of freeing up storage and delivering higher quality video and using better compression. That's a solution. If you want to save space on your phone and you still want to capture really high quality video, HEVC is the current offering. The problem is Google slow playing this transition into better video compression because of the licensing fees. And I totally understand that Google doesn't want to spend more money on H.265 support for YouTube and
but
Google
it has
Drive.
the money. It has the money.
So this isn't a problem with Huawei. This is a problem with Google. Now, that sucks because if you pick up a Huawei phone, you're going to go, oh, but it doesn't work with the video, so it's Huawei. Huawei can't fix Google.
Huawei can't H.265 is a natural evolution, whereas Google's what are they backing? They're backing another is it proprietary?
Well, so what Google is doing is they're going to be supporting something called AV1, which they went with VP9 for YouTube video streaming and compression, and they want an open source solution which doesn't cost them as much. The problem with that is what shoots AV1. There is not a product which delivers better video compression for consumers. So right now, you can shoot H.265 on an Axon 7. You can shoot H.265 on a Mate 9 and a P10. If you want 4K super high quality video and you don't want it to wreck your storage, or you don't want to have to invest in extra memory cards just for video, those are acceptable solutions. Now, what I have a problem with is this notion that these files are impossible to work with. And that was really the main crux of the vlog.
Well,
does adding a step for transcoding suck? Everyone will agree that that step sucks. But this notion that it's not safe to do this, or that it's somehow hostile to consumers, is absolutely and completely misguided. This is not true. Even if I'm on OneDrive, I can use the folder that I use to render the video to back up, or I can back up the original file, even if that file won't stream on OneDrive. I've run into that with family and friends. I've accidentally shot video of my daughter, uploaded it to the family folder that we all share photos in, and then people go, oh, I can't play this video, and I look like a jerk. But that file's still safe. I can still download that file, and that file will still play on my stuff that is H.265 compliant. So again, this is not a problem with Huawei. And this is not a problem where I feel consumers need to be afraid of using something new. They just need to know that it's going to be different. And that's where, again, I go back to my original point. When did we geeks become so conservative? We used to be the ones on the bleeding edge, on the vanguard, and we used to be the ones that would tell our family and friends, like, hey, maybe that's not for you right now. This is what you have to do. But let me tell you, it's going to be great when you don't have a ton of your storage eaten up. We didn't have this, oh, it's hostile. It's hostile to consumers to have this. You should never use it. If you get a P10, just shoot 1080p
because
you can't do anything with it. And like that's crap advice. That's not advice. That's
Apple
anti-advice.
doesn't use it yet, but iCloud does not support it yet. And if it want between the warring factions that want HEVC to be and want I can't even remember YouTube's format because I don't even care about it because it's so freaking like there's this war going on, and between people the players bigger than us, and we're left to decide what we can do, and the informed people and the what to do. It's like, oh, it's a bother, so what? Well, yeah, sure, but consumers are still they still want something that works. It just works. And we still have nothing good to say to them other than what you want to do is follow this 7-step list.
So again, is our job as a tech reviewer to stop at the type of examination that a general consumer would bring to the table, or is our job to be a resource for people to find answers?
And
H.265 has been a codec that has been in use for several years now. It is not a mystery on how you can edit those files. It is not a mystery on how you can back up those files or transcode those files. A simple Google search of how to upload HEVC to YouTube will satisfy most people who would even be curious enough to consider a P10 and the 4K video recording on the P10. And the fact that you can get away with an Android app to fully edit with layers and the ability to soundtrack a video like I did in that vlog shows us that we're already on a path towards this being far more consumer friendly than it's being made out to be by people that are, I think, scaremongering what the situation actually resembles.
I want to shoot a picture of my a video of my dog, and I want to save it to my photo album right over here. Right over, it's how do I do that?
I can't help you, Jules. It's impossible. There's nothing you can do with those photos and files. It's a complete mystery, and no one knows the answer because I put your photo into Final Cut and it didn't work. So them's the breaks. It's impossible. There is no answer. There's no answer.
Yeah,
you can't do it.
Yeah. But
on that note, I think we should probably tap it because I have to go pee like a mofo. So I'm gonna exit us out of this. But for people who are interested, you can see the vlog, and if you watch through the end of the vlog, I feel that there is an argument to be made for pushing the boundaries on what it is that we can do with our phones. So, folks, there you have it. Another episode of the Pocketnow Weekly has come and gone. This show is ending, but the conversation continues on Twitter, where you can find Jules as @PointJules. Definitely give Jaime a follow, Jaime_Rivera, and I'm humbly @SomeGadgetGuy. Pocketnow is around the web on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, and our home site, Pocketnow.com, where we're not afraid of H.265 video. Shows like this can't exist without your support, sharing the weekly with your friends who love mobile technology, and by dropping some reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever podcast reviews can be left. Once again, we want to thank this week's sponsor, Mara.ai. They're helping us keep the lights on here, but ultimately there wouldn't be a show if it weren't for our listeners and subscribers who have kept us on the air since 2012. The Pocketnow Weekly will be back next week with all kinds of delicious technology goodness, so make sure you tune back in.
I just upgraded to Vegas 14. There.
All right.